Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
Just ahead of Shane Malloy, today's guests are brought to you by Langley Chrysler. They have the vehicle for your next summer adventure. Whether you need a Jeep for the beach or a Ram for the fam, you can save up to $12,000 online or on land at langleychrysler.com. Hope I did well there, Ryan. Joined now by Shane Malloy, host of Hockey Prospects Radio, also author of The Art of Scouting, how the hockey experts look at the game and decide who makes it. All right, Shane, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Congratulations on the new show. It wouldn't be the same without you guys on the air. So I listen intently from the East Coast because it helps me remind me what I'm missing in Vancouver.
Let me get the name of the book right. The Art of Scouting, how the hockey experts really watch the game and decides who make it. All right, Shane, how difficult is your job in this year? I would imagine you're not able to go to a lot of games live, so you're depending on video more than ever. Have I got that right? And if so, how difficult is that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That is correct. It's not as challenging for me in terms of watching video because it's something I had to incorporate because I'm only one person. So I don't have a choice. I have to watch video. But what I've done over the years has changed how I watch video. I think one of the biggest misconceptions when you're watching video is I don't watch a whole game. I just don't because it's far too inefficient, especially even if I have it on my big screen to watch. You're watching multiple players on a screen. So I use Instat, which is a company that does analytics but also does all the video, and they cut down the video footage of all the players for all their different types of sequences. So it'll shift to shift and, zone entry, zone exits, all types of different. So that gives me a better idea of what they're doing in a micro standpoint instead of like macro. I know there's some scouts out there that are watching full games. I don't know how they can get through all those games and find out what they need to see in a player. So you just try to be as efficient as you can, and you understand that you're going to be missing some things. You have to live in a world of uncertainty. You have to be okay with having some uncertainty in your life because there's going to be some missing pieces at the end of the day.
Okay, live or on video, how quickly do you know if a player's got something or not?
I think within, a couple games. The first thing you have to look for is hockey sense, that ability to process information under duress and make the best decision possible consistently. If you can recognize that pretty quickly, and then you're looking for work ethic and skating ability. Skating isn't the end-all to be-all, but you have to be an efficient skater. You don't have to be a fast skater. You look at Mark Stone in the NHL. He's not the fastest skater, but he's highly efficient, and he understands when to increase and decrease his speed, and he's smart understanding where he needs to be on the ice. So you don't have to be a burner to be effective. There's different ways to be an effective skater. But to me, work ethic and the willingness to do the things that other guys won't do, because the talent pool quickly compresses once you get a junior or college into the American League, and you realize that every player in the American League is a top-end player. And then, that's when the heavy lifting really starts.
All right, Shane, as far as your opinion of the quality of the 2021 draft goes, can the Canucks land a solid prospect at number 9?
Oh, they can land an excellent prospect at number 9. I think it starts to drop after 9, just a little bit, but it does. I think there's 9 really core players here, and we had Jim Benning on our radio show. We taped it yesterday. It'll air on the weekend, and he was very optimistic and positive. He usually is, obviously, when we're talking about prospects, because that's his wheelhouse. He loves talking about prospects. But he, along with everybody else, is optimistic they're going to find somebody who's a really good player at 9. And, every once in a while in the draft, some team in the top 10 will take a player that no one expects to go, and then that drops a player down, which is like, you look at Podkolzin. I don't think he should have been there at that spot, and the Canucks were fortunate enough to get him.
Hey, Shane, if the Canucks do want a defenseman in this draft, I don't see any of the top 4 dropping to 9. Do you?
They shouldn't, but they could. And that's what happens. Like, you look at the Arizona Coyotes took Barrett Hayton. Nobody was expecting him to go there, and it dropped players down. So that does happen. Look at Noah Dobson. He didn't go in the top 10. So that does happen. So could Simon Edvinsson drop to 9? It's very plausible. You know, it only takes one team to like a player, and then they drop. So there's an opportunity there to get a defenseman, you know, of the top 4. If we're looking at Owen Power and Simon Edvinsson, Brandt Clark in that group, I think that, you know, one of them, or Luke Hughes, you know, one of them could end up dropping. It wouldn't shock me.
Okay, let's talk about the local kid, Kent Johnson. There's a possibility he could end up with the Canucks. What do you like about him?
Hockey sense and playmaking ability. You know, he reminds me in some respects to Kyle Turris when Kyle played in the BC Hockey League, and I got to see him play a lot. Skinny, but lanky. Obviously, he'll grow into his body. But his hockey sense, especially making plays at center or on the wing. I think he actually might be a better winger as a pro than a centerman. So, and his ability to hold the puck and draw defenders and to be able to be deceptive. And he understands when to change his speed and his pace in his game, which causes a lot of mismatches when it comes to trying to defend him and defend gaps. So I think, you know, he's a very, very good playmaker. And if the Canucks land him, if I'm a fan of the Canucks, I'd be very happy with that choice.
The other one, quickly, is Fabien Lisselle, who is property of the Vancouver Giants of the Western Hockey League. There's a possibility he could go in that 9, 10, 11 range. What do you like about him?
That's not a player that I would have in that range. I actually would have him much lower. You know, he certainly has some hockey sense and puck skills, but I have some concerns about his willingness in terms of a player of making those plays when it really matters. I'm not entirely convinced of his work ethic at this point as well, and that's really important to me. I would rather have, you know, a player, if you're looking at a guy like Mason McTavish, if he happened to drop, that he's more similar to a Bo Horvat type of player. And that's the kind of player that helps you win in the playoffs. There's guys that help you get there, and there's guys that help you win. And I'm more focused on the guys that can handle that level of duress in the worst situations, back-to-back nights, 3 and 4 nights. Do they still come to play, and do they still produce when the best players of their peer group are against them?
Let's switch gears for a second here, Shane. Off the draft for a second, but sticking with a Canuck draft pick, Vasily Podkolzin. What do you expect from him at the NHL level this coming year?
Well, I mean, obviously he's a rookie, but lucky for the Canucks, he's played against men and played against pros. And one of the things I really appreciate about him is his willingness to play the right way all over the ice. Like, he doesn't cheat on plays. And so he'll play defensively, and he'll find his assignment, and he'll work diligently at that. You know, I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but coaches will trust him because of that, even though he's a young player. But as in terms of offensive, he's a bulldozer. His style, he's not the same player exactly, but his style reminds me of Dustin Brown with the LA Kings. Big, sturdy winger who comes down that wall and will bull his way to the net and will do all the dirty work to get pucks, but he can make plays off the wall and, you know, in the dirty areas with the puck. And he'll draw defenders to him. And I think people might be surprised at how good his playmaking ability is. Well, he has good hands in traffic. I think he's a player that the Canucks need. I mean, I think it was a nice addition of getting Höglander into it, that style of tenacity. And I think the same mentality is what Podkolzin's going to bring to this organization as well. And they need it. Like, they need an infusion of that, which is why, you know, for Canuck fans, you're crossing your fingers that the Canucks invest more in player development to help Cole Lind, Gadjevich, you know, Will Lockwood. If those guys can just play, they don't have to play in obviously the top 6, but if you can get two of them to play on the fourth line and one of them to play on the third for a career, and then get Jet Wu to play on a third pairing, that will make all the difference in terms of being able to turn the franchise around and get into the playoffs, because those entry-level contracts will make a tremendous difference and allow them some flexibility. But also, they need some infusion of youth in this organization, some excitement, some guys who are excited to be there. And I don't think Gadjevich and Lind's skating are not that far away. The work needs to be done. They don't have to be great. They just need to be average, because I think their other skill sets will make up for some of those deficiencies.
Yeah, so like you say, they've got some work to do. Okay, so back to the draft. Owen Power, the big Michigan defenseman, the big Canadian defenseman out of Michigan, player of the game yesterday, despite what Troy Stetcher was up to. Player of the game yesterday for Team Canada at the Worlds against the Russians. What does he offer, and is he a future Buffalo Sabre?
Honestly, in most cases, I have a pretty good idea, depending who's picking on one, who they're going to take. Honestly, I don't know what Buffalo's going to do, because they've made so many changes in their management staff and their scouting staff. It's really difficult to say whether Owen Power is going to be that player. They could take Matthew Berners. They could take William Eklund. Honestly, I could roll the dice. I'm not kidding. I don't know what they're going to do now. So, but what Owen Power brings is some similarity to Eric Johnson, and big, strong, mobile, smart, puck-moving defenseman who can play in a top pairing. Do I think he's going to be a number one? Not convinced. But certainly, number two is a high probability of that happening. And if you can get that type of player in your lineup, you should be thrilled. So I expect him. I don't want to see him jump into the NHL next year, but I expect he's probably going to have to jump into the NHL next year.
Shane, quickly, the Canucks 2020 draft, they didn't have a first or second round pick. Their first pick was Joni Jurmo, a defenseman from Finland, in the third round. Any update on him?
Far as I understand, and what I've seen of him in terms of his viewings on tape, I don't project him to be an NHL player, but he might, but could be an American League player. But most Europeans, if they don't make it, they don't spend too much time in the American League and they go back. So I think the hope for the future actually lies for the Canucks in the 2018 and 2017 drafts. If those other players, like I mentioned, Jet Wu and Lind and Gadjevich, DiPietro, Rathbone, Lockwood, can make it through, that's going to be the icing on the cake. This organization needs for those players to succeed and get into the NHL. They don't have to be superstars; they just have to play.
We could go on and on, Shane. Thanks so much for this. Appreciate it. We'll try to get you on around draft time.
Sounds great, gentlemen. Have a fantastic weekend.